Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest Ellie Shoja.
Hi everyone, I'm that gal, Lorianne from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I'm with...
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas, and we would like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
So this episode, we're glad to have Ellie Shoja. See, I knew I was going to mess that up. Sorry about that. And she's a serial entrepreneur and an author. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here with you too. Thanks so much for having me.
Glad to have you. So I've got to ask you, you're the daughter of an international con man.
Correct.
Now, there's got to be a great story there.
It is great. It is tragic. It's fun. It depends on how you look at it and with what vantage point you look at it from. But it was definitely interesting. Different than what most people go through, I think.
So can you elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up, my dad was a con man. We moved from country to country, changed our names, changed our identities. We lived in refugee camps in Germany. I lived in Iran, Germany, and Turkey. And actually in order, Iran, Turkey, and Germany. And in Germany, my mom, my sister, and I, we had to run away from my dad to kind of get away from that life. And that's when our path separated from my dad. And we ran away. We went back to Iran for about 2 years. And then we immigrated to the US when I was 15 years old. So leaving the life on the road behind, but also bringing a lot of that gunk that it created with me into my new life.
Oh my, yeah. I mean, so is it just like you would see on TV, like a TV show or a movie? Is that what living that life is like?
Yeah, it's like being in those TV shows, but the effects of it are, you're living that, right? And when you're a kid, you kind of internalize all of these things in a very specific way. You think that it's your fault. It's because you are unlovable, you're unworthy, and it just creates all these false stories within us. So by the time I was 12 and we left my dad, I had severe nervous tics. I had anger problems. I was suicidal. I decided there can't be a God because a God that allows children to suffer as I had could not exist. So we had a major falling out, God and I. And that was kind of the thing. That was the theme of my life for a long time. I was the victim of this upbringing that I hadn't chosen, and it's woe is me, right? In my mid-20s, my ex-husband, at the time he was my boyfriend, he gave me The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And that was the first time I kind of could take a breath. And I realized that there's something more to us than, this physical experience, the physical world that I'm going through, the suffering that I was carrying with me. There's something more. And just having that little bit of a glimpse into that world, it made me want more. I wanted more relief. I wanted relief from my pain. I wanted to just let go of all this baggage that I'd been carrying. And that threw me into this, decades of exploration of the world of spirituality, of psychology, of philosophy. And along the way, I just learned all these different techniques and tools and picked up from my favorite teachers all these different ways of reframing and re-understanding what my life actually was, and how to let go and forgive and release so that I could find who I really am underneath all of those stories, all of that gunk. Fast forward to today, where I'm probably one of the happiest, most happy-go-lucky, optimistic, upbeat people, at peace people that you might meet. And it all came from just this process of forgiveness, of letting go, of releasing all of those stories. I don't know if that answered your question, Roy.
Well, no, but I listen to you, thinking about as a child what you went through, and I would think most people would never be able to break free from that. And
yeah, it's
you were able to.
yeah, they're traps. There's nothing special about me though. I think what I was able to do is something that's available to every single human being, you know, and the thing is, we carry our trauma forward almost as a badge of honor. You know, we identify ourselves, our identity with it. It's like, I was this abused child, you know, like, and as long as it's our identity, it's very hard to let go of it. So I actually had to do a lot of work on myself to release these events from myself and realize that, you know what happened to me, what I thought, what I did, what I said, what was said to me, like none of that is who I am. You know, who I am is so much greater, is so much more interesting than, you know, being the daughter of a con man and moving 30 times. I'm glad that that was part of my history, because look, I'm here with you because that caught your attention. You know, you're like, who is this person who grew up as the daughter of an international con man? It's a cool story. But if I was still back there trapped in that trauma, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because I would be bawling my eyes out. I would be so just distraught. I'd be so angry by these cards that I was dealt, and I wouldn't be able to do the work that I do, which is essentially tell people, hey, I've been there. I've been to those dark, terrible places where you don't see a way forward other than taking your own life. I have been there, and I can promise you there is a better way. There is a different way. There's a different you who is not affected by this suffering, by this trauma. Your past doesn't have to make you suffer. It's not there to make you suffer. It's there actually to release you, you know, and the more crap there is back there, the more opportunity we have to go deeper into ourselves and find that source of just joy and peace within ourselves.
That's
Did
deep.
Did you want to say something, Lorianne?
Well, I was just sitting there going, oh my goodness, like, and I, not to bring up the childhood, because I know who you are today is a lot more important, and I like that. Almost segregating without segregating, taking the strengths but leaving the pain, and all of that is really interesting. But how old were you? Can you remember how old were you when you became aware of this lifestyle not being normal, so to speak? Because, you know, when we grow up in a certain way, we think it's normal.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up essentially lying about my identity. You know, we moved 8 or 9 times in 1 year. I mean, imagine you're 9 or 10 years old and you move 1 time. You have to release all your friends, you move to a different city, start a new school, and imagine that new city is in a different country and you don't even speak the language. You know, we did that 8 times in 1 year. You know, that is a lot, you know, for a kid to kind of live through, right? And we did that multiple years in a row, and we did that from country to country. And now I'm forgetting what your question was.
Oh, it was just at the onset. And just quickly, I can understand that, because believe it or not, when I was 7 years old, my parents moved me from Canada to Turkey.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But we didn't move a whole bunch of times when we were in Turkey. We were there for 4 years. So I understand where you're saying that one, but to do that 8 times, I couldn't imagine. But when were you aware that this was not a normal type of lifestyle?
Yeah. So for me, that life was just the way it was, you know. And when we came to the U.S., we used to just like we were in one place. It was very strange. It was very odd. We had the same group of friends. That was very odd. Like, I had to figure out how to like make friends. And then when I was in my early 20s, 24, I started dating my ex-husband, and I went over to his house very early on into us dating, and I saw his family. And these people, they'd been together for over 30 years, and they had built their dream house. And these kids, they had 3 kids. They each had their own rooms. I mean, imagine having your own room, you know, right? For someone like me. And they each had their own interests, and their interests were valued, and their parents would kiss each other on the when they were passing each other. And I remember I was with my ex-husband early in our relationships, and I would be like, so when your parents fight, when your parents would fight when you were growing up, would you hear them fighting? And he'd say, no, my parents don't fight, they get along. I'm like, no, okay, maybe they were hiding it, but when they would fight, you know, like, would they close the doors because I see their room is like, has its own wing, you know, like, would they close the door and you wouldn't hear it? It's like, no, my parents get along. They don't fight. I'm like, yeah, but would they throw anything at each other? You know, like, and it didn't compute. Like, in my brain, it literally did not compute. It's like, what do you mean your parents get along? Like, that's not a thing, right? I mean, that's like on TV. I saw that on the Cosby Show, but it's not a thing. And I remember when it kind of like, it was a lengthy conversation of me just asking the same question multiple ways and him saying, what the hell are you talking about, kid? Yeah, and finally, when it kind of sunk in, I just cried for like 2 weeks, because I realized that this life that I didn't know existed outside of television exists. And there are people who live it. And there are people who have those relationships. And I had just a complete meltdown. And at the end of the, 2.5, 3 weeks of my, woe's me, my world is falling apart. What do you mean this exists? And, thing, I made a decision, and I said, you know what, if it exists, if there are people who are at peace and they have relationships that don't have turmoil and fighting, I want it. If it exists, I want it. I want a piece of it. Like, I want to learn how I can be a person in that kind of a relationship. And that was I think the beginning. And that preceded him giving me that book. And I believe that when we make decisions like that in our lives, the teachers then appear. They show up.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because my oldest son, he had graduated college. He'd been working probably 15 years. Mm-hmm. And so somebody mentioned something about, growing up and their parents fighting and all this stuff. And so they asked Chris, they go, did your parents fight? And he goes, no, not that I can remember. and he says, really? He goes, I don't remember my parents fighting. And so he called me and he says, Dad, did you, Mom? I don't remember y'all fighting. I said, well, in front of y'all, we were a united front. But
yeah.
When y'all went to bed, we went to bed, we'd go in our bedroom and we would discuss,
mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't like this or whatever. But in front of you two, we never, if one of us said something, the other one backed it. And,
yeah.
And that kind of hit me when you said that. I never really thought about it, right?
Yeah.
Because like you say, it was just normal for us.
Yeah.
So I never thought about it. But then when he brought that up and he said, I remember y'all fighting, and I thought, wow, that's pretty, So there are people out there like that. I'm one of them.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, now I'm one of those people, and because where there's a will, there's a way. It is so true. And everything that we want in life, whether it's whatever it is, it's literally that decision. It's like making that decision. That moment of decision, I believe, was one of the most important moments of my life, of realizing, okay, this exists. There are people like you, Roy, and I want to be like those people. I didn't grow up learning how to do it, so I'm just gonna have to learn how to be one of those people.
It's interesting too, though, when you've been brought up. Like my parents had their arguments. My mother with the Italian and French in her. There was like, she spoke it out, whatever she wanted to. She got upset with my dad. We heard it, and it wasn't. It was sort of disturbing, but it was reality. I mean, she spoke her mind. So it was a little bit different. But I saw my mother in me with my children. I did see that, and I really didn't want to be that person. Like my father was not as argumentative. I wanted to be more like dad than my mother. But I saw it happening because I guess when you grow up with it, you almost get this sort of, and you're adjusted to that sort of way. And
yeah,
really have to be aware. And I know I wasn't always aware, but then there were times I'm going, oh my goodness, this is what I said I wouldn't want to do, and here I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So, and I know, Roy, you talked about that with Barbara, how you made her accountable to your.
Yeah, because I had a pretty bad dad, and we didn't get along, and so I always told him when we were dating and we got married, I said, look, if you ever see me going in that direction, you need to let me know. Hey,
that's amazing.
And so she'd say, hey, you're kind of going your dad's way. So I'd stop and pull back. Because I didn't want to perpetuate that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And like you say, when you're growing up, what you see is real.
Yeah.
Your family, you think everybody's doing this. And then all of a sudden you go out and see someone else. You're going like, well, that's totally different than my family.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true.
His family was more like what you're talking about, Ellie. And he was, so I don't think he knew how to handle me when I was sort of showing my mother's side. And I'm not saying anything bad about my mother. It was the way she, she saw her father was very outspoken. She was like that too. I would have preferred not to be, but those moments came out in me. Yeah. And my ex-husband didn't know how to deal with it because parents never fought ever in front of them.
We're all products of our environment. We can't help it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain things you grew up that way, and like you say, you've got to work on, realize what those are and work on changing them.
Yeah. And what you brought up, Roy, it's just like that self-awareness and you too, Lorianne, like being aware of the path that you're moving down and then having somebody else hold you accountable, like really incredible tools right there.
Yeah, that accountability. So as a serial entrepreneur, tell us a little bit about that part of your life.
Yeah, so honestly, I think it probably comes from my desire to just move and do things. So I like to always be doing the stuff that I like to be doing. And since I was 19, I've just started businesses with the things that I enjoyed doing and I wanted to experiment with and explore. Right now, my company is called Peace Unleashed. I actually co-founded this with a close friend of mine, and we create courses and publish books and items that help people tap into that inner peace. And I believe that this business actually came directly out of wanting to share how to go from a dark place, understand that darkness and then live in a place of light and fluffiness and peace. So everything that I have learned along the way that has allowed me to be the person that I am today, I've just been pouring into this. Before this, I had a production company and I was making videos. But I feel like, especially during this time, A Course in Miracles says, many are called, few answer. And, I was called to this work and I answered and I'm here. And that's my mission right now is to create products and put out things that help people tap into their own inner peace. We call it unleashing the power of their inner peace, because that's where the power is. That's where our power is. When we have peace, we're powerful.
And that's something people need is peace, especially in today's times.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And listen, my background with my dad actually feeds into everything that I do in some way. I just wrote a science fiction novel. I'm an author, and there are scenes in it where I literally draw from things I learned from my dad. Like anytime we would go to a new space, we would be quizzed. Like I'd be quizzed on what were all the entrances and the exits, because when you enter a room, you have to know all of the entrances and exits. And here's a pro tip: windows are exits. So you better figure out how to get out of that window in a split second as you're scanning the room, in case you need it, in case you need to. So there's a scene in my novel, I have it right here, 13th Planet, that the protagonist literally has to get out of a jam, and he's locked into a room, and he's trying to figure out how he can escape. And there's a window, and he starts plotting his exit through the window. And that came directly from my dad. So I'm incredibly grateful to every experience I had, every lesson that I have learned, because as a writer, as a creator, as a content creator, it all feeds into, storytelling that I do.
I was just thinking back, I can see it like you're a 10-year-old girl, right? Mm-hmm. You're Ellie. Then you go over here, all right, now your new name is Susie, and you're from this, okay, Susie, I'm not Ellie, and just back and forth like that, trying to, to me, that would be so hard to do as a kid, It's hard to do as an adult, really, but I mean, a young kid, changing your name and trying to, get some kind of backstop, for how you got there and all that. That's wild. I mean, I couldn't have done it. Huh?
I think it's great that you're writing a book and you're taking those experiences and putting them into a fiction, and science fiction, no doubt. That sounds like a lot of fun. And sorry, just if you can repeat the name for our readers.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I have a couple of things, and this is the other thing that I find with my background is that, and people who have similar backgrounds where, you live a life that spans a lot of different types of experiences, it literally expands your range as a human being, and on the one level, I can write something like this, which is called The 13th Planet. And this is science fiction. It's end of the world stuff, It's people, bad people doing bad things, or wounded people trying to destroy the planet. And, all this stuff takes place in this book, right? And then on the other hand, I can write something like this. It's an oracle card deck called Your Heart Knows the Way. And it's all about all of the things we can do to unclog that heart space and allow love and connection to flow through it. And that range comes from living a range of experiences, and it's such an incredible gift when I realized that my past was not here to make me suffer. My past didn't happen to, as a form of punishment, and I don't have to carry it forward with me in this heavy way. I can forgive it, and I can release it, and I can forgive every character in that story and free myself, so that then I can draw from it everything that I need as a creator, and create things that connect with more people. People who are in pain, and people who are seeking connection, and people who want a bridge from one to the next.
That's amazing.
To me, it's incredible that transition you've made. Mm-hmm. Just seeing your face, we can tell you're happy. Yeah. You're carefree. There's nothing holding you back. You're giving. It's very easy to see that just talking to you in your face. I would say you're one of the few people that, found your purpose and your passion.
It's interesting. The purpose and passion is such an interesting conversation, right? Because a lot of people search for their passion. They search for their purpose in life. And I truly believe that our only purpose in life is to find peace and joy within ourselves. That's the only thing we are here to do. Because when you find peace, when you find joy, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you know, in the present moment within yourself, that joy trickles out. That stuff is contagious. It's powerful. It trickles out into your immediate family, into your community, and trickles out. And I really believe that the path to world peace is through our individual hearts. So if I make feeling at peace and tapping into that joy and appreciation within myself a priority, and if you make that a priority, and Lorianne, you make that a priority, then those around us are infected by that. And then that spreads. And I really believe that once we are in that place, we naturally gravitate towards more things that make us feel good, you know, that bring us joy, that make us feel appreciative and grateful. And those things are going to feel easy for us to do because they feel like they're just a natural extension of who we are. And I think that's what our purpose in the world is, to do things that makes us feel like we're having a good time and we're having fun, you know, to create things that are fun for us. And if everybody does that, I really, truly believe we can have a society of people where everyone thrives, because the things that I will do are different than the things that you would do. You know, we would each just be little, you know, like a watch, all of those, what are they, all the little screws, and everything just works together. All the cogs, they just work together, you know, and without, like, everybody would just find where they fit in, you know.
That's very true. I was actually just thinking about that for the peace and all of that is my thoughts on that were like, you're not wearing, you don't have the anchor that a lot of people, I think that's what Roy was trying to get to. There's a lot of people that their past they carry as an anchor, and they just can't free themselves. They can't cut the chain to walk away from it and look and say, yeah, you see that anchor? Yeah, I used to be attached to that, but you know, now it's holding a boat somewhere it needs to be doing, and I'm doing my thing. So, you know, a lot freer. But yeah, I can imagine that. And I think you're absolutely right that some of the toughest things that we've endured become one of the best gifts, because then you can use it for creativity, for helping, for whatever. Instead of being an anchor, it becomes a gift, which is so much different.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's not a chaining you down, you know, like we are like these birds, and we try to fly, but then we get, you know, we get whiplash, we hit something, and it's literally what you said. It's like we have our pasts like these chains attached to our legs, and just anchored down into the ground, and we can't go anywhere, you know. And it's all this false belief that, you know, who I am is somehow what I did, what I said, what was said to me, you know, how I'm feeling, like all of these transient things, you know, like my words, my emotions, my thoughts. But my thoughts change from moment to moment. My emotions change from moment to moment. You know, my memories change from moment to moment. So none of, depending on what lens I look through, all of those things are constantly shifting and changing. So if I attach my identity to those things, my identity then is constantly shifting and changing. You know, no wonder, you know, we feel like, you know, we don't know who we are, right? But if I am none of those things, and I am that consciousness, that infinite being experiencing the world, you know, and experiencing an emotion depending on the lens through which it looks at the world, you know, that just like opens up this definition of self so much. It allows us to become so much more, and it allows us to kind of like reframe the past in ways that are more empowering than limiting.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
So, Ellie, how can our listeners reach out to you?
You can reach out to me anything at Peace Unleashed. So peaceunleashed.com is the website where you can go. You can go to Instagram, Peace Unleashed. You can go on YouTube, Peace Unleashed. And by the way, on YouTube, there's a ton of free meditations for you. And there's some really fun videos where we do an oracle card reading. It's called It's in the Cards, for somebody who hasn't asked for one and frankly doesn't care. So we did a bunch of readings for celebrities who don't know we're alive. So a lot of fun. And yeah, Facebook, Peace Unleashed. Yeah.
Great. Did you have anything else, Lorianne?
Not. I just found this fascinating, and thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, me too. It was a real pleasure having you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a pleasure. What a treat.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All
We
right.
appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.